What's going on, guys? This is kind of crazy. I didn't really expect it to be this good. What am I talking about? I am talking about the new banners that they just dropped on us on Twitter and I believe in game. Okay, so this is the Yae Miko banner. On this banner, you're gonna have Thoma, Fischl, and Diona. And to be honest, this isn't really the banner I'm referring to when I'm talking about how crazy this is, but this banner overall isn't that bad. And let me tell you why. As usual, we're gonna be talking about the character banners and the banners they teased for the weapons, just so you guys get an idea of how valuable these banners are in comparison to maybe some older banners, or just in general whether or not you should pull on them. So anyways, let's get right into it. First off, not a lot of people are a fan of Thoma in terms of his value as an actual character. Do I mean that he's not loved? No, Thoma actually has one of the biggest fan bases of a lot of Genshin characters in general, because Thoma is the dare I say male wife of this game, and a lot of people really love that about him. But in terms of actual gameplay, the unit himself, he doesn't really have a lot of teams he can fit well into right now, and as a result, not a lot of people really think you should run him unless you basically are running a Yoimiya team. That's the only thing you can really slot him into that works perfectly. Can you run him in other teams? Absolutely, but in terms of like perfect synergies, he doesn't have a whole lot. So not a lot of people are going to like to see Thoma here. If you're a meta player, if you're a casual player, you're probably ecstatic about it, and that's awesome. But I'm more excited that Fischl is back. So for those of you who don't know, Fischl was one of the original cast of Genshin Impact. If you're a newer player, you may not have ever actually seen her on a banner, and that's because she has not been on a banner in a very long time. Fischl is an amazing character. She fits into basically any single team with an electro character, and even a lot of teams without. The reason for this is because Fischl not only does a decent chunk of damage, but she also is very easy to play, and she generates a lot of energy. So if you're ever running a team with Beto in it, or a character that has a high cost burst in general, Fischl is a very good character to slot in there, as long as she's not ruining any reactions like melt. Just in general, she's very good. She also can be used for 4-piece tenacity of the Millith. Honestly, if you just don't have Raiden at all, Fischl is an excellent replacement for Raiden. Because Fischl generates almost as much energy as Raiden, the only difference in energy generation that happens with Raiden is Raiden's burst itself generates energy for your whole team. But outside of that, Fischl is very good at generating particles, and Oz does a lot of damage. So very good pickup, highly recommend. And then Diona. Now Diona doesn't necessarily have any synergy with these two characters in particular, but Diona is a very good character as well. She is one of my favorite supports in the entire game because she's able to heal and shield all in one kit, and she generates a ton of energy. When you use her elemental skill, she can put up shields for your team, and if you hold it, you can actually generate up to 5 particles at a time. So she works really well with characters like Eula, Ayaka, Ganyu. Honestly, like any cryo carry, she's going to be able to battery them very well, and her shields are nothing to scoff at. They are very strong. Overall, Diona is a super solid unit, and everyone should definitely have at least one Diona. I would say similar things about Fischl. You probably should try to shoot for at least one Fischl, especially if you have a newer account and you've never had the chance to get her. She is an amazing unit, and though she may have been lost to time with Raiden, she has not gotten worse at all. She's very good. And then we have Yae Miko, and you've already decided if you're rolling for her most likely, but if not, I will have a day 1 review out, so look forward to that. That way you can kind of decide whether or not she's going to be for you. So, but anyways, this banner pales in comparison to this weapon banner. So you might notice something, right? You might notice something a little cool about this banner. First off, we have some decent options over here. We have stringless and we have sacrificial sword. Sacrificial sword is amazing. I think everyone should go for at least one of these because it empowers Xingqiu to be so very good. Sacrificial sword lets you use an elemental skill twice in a row, assuming you activate the effect, and it's an energy recharge main stat. So it's actually very good for support characters and batterying. And then you have Wavebreaker's Fin. This is actually a great Xiangling weapon. The only 2 weapons I'm not so happy about are going to be Rain Slasher and whatever this thing is. I can't even remember what it's called. Eye of Perception. Eye of Perception is kind of like the flute. It's an okay weapon if you're like a free-to-play player and you're just like looking for something to use, but it's not an amazing weapon. Same with Rain Slasher. The one exception to Rain Slasher is that it's actually very good on D-Luke at a high-end build, but outside of that, 3 of these weapons are very good. And then if you look over here, you have Kagura's Verity, which is going to be Yae Miko's weapon, and Primordial Jade Cutter. We actually had Jade Cutter fairly recently. I don't know how many banners back it was, but it feels pretty recent. And this is definitely one of the best swords in the game, if not the best sword. It's definitely between this sword and Mist Splitter. The reason that Primordial Jade Cutter is so good is because it has 44 crit rate. Look at this, 44 crit rate. And then its passive is so strong. HP increased by 20%. Okay, so it's like Safahoma, right? And then additionally provides an attack bonus based on 1.2% of wielder's magic max HP. On top of the already decent base attack at 542, you're getting 1% of the HP here just stacked onto your attack. So it's very strong, especially with characters that you get to around 20k HP. Yeah, honestly, Jade Cutter, amazing weapon, and I'm so glad it's back. The only downside about Jade Cutter, and I will be completely transparent about this, is that Jade Cutter is not as good on characters like Kaya and Ayaka. I don't have Ayaka to show you guys, but the main reason is because on those two characters, oftentimes you're going to run Blizzard Strayer, and Blizzard Strayer with the 4-piece set is going to give you up to 40 crit rate. You could probably imagine that 44 crit rate plus 40 crit rate is about 84 crit rate, and then on top of that, if you're actually running a cryo team, you're going to get another 15% crit rate from cryo resonance, so you're already going to have over 100. It's not that it's necessarily bad on those characters, but it just gets a lot of like diminishing returns, because once you hit 100 crit rate, like you don't even need any more. But in general, Primordial Jade Cutter is very good. Okay, and then the other weapon is Kagura's Verity, and we're going to actually talk about what is good about this weapon. So let me show you guys the stats. So we're over here on Genshin Impact Twitter. I know it's a cursed place. We're going to look at Kagura's Verity. Here are all the stats for the weapon. Now, as you can see, 66.2% crit damage is decent. It's not Jade Cutter numbers of crit value, but it's still a lot of crit damage it's going to be adding. And then it has normal base attack for a 5-star. So in general, its stats are already pretty good. But the effect really caters to Yae. So gains the Kagura dance effect when using an elemental skill, causing the elemental skill damage of the character wielding this weapon to increase by 12% for 16 seconds. So in Yae Miko's case, you're going to place down the 3 turret totem things, and you're going to get up to 36% elemental skill damage. And then once you have 3 stacks, you're also getting 12% all elemental damage bonus. So here is the problem with this weapon, and here's what's good about this weapon. If you're going for Yae Miko, this weapon is a huge damage increase from the next weapon up. And then if you play Lisa, if you're one of the 7 Lisa players in the game, this weapon could be good for you as well. Now, I'm not talking about optimal rotation play Lisa, because with that, you're basically not tapping E at all. But if you're in the overworld and you just like Lisa, you're a big fan of her kit, this is a great option for you. But in general, the reason I was really excited about this is because Jade Cutter being on the Yae weapon banner is very good for players who are excited about Yae, and I know that a lot of the player base is very excited for Yae. Now, I will be honest, if you're not going for Yae, I don't think that this weapon is going to be as worth it for you. Now, if you get it, it's actually still a decent weapon. It's not the end of the world if you get it. It has a crit damage main stat, so that's already pretty valuable, and you can get a skill damage buff on whatever character you're using it on. So overall, it's not a bad weapon, but if you're not going for Yae Miko, I wouldn't recommend rolling specifically for it. However, if you're interested in Jade Cutter, I would say this weapon banner isn't that bad, because the last time we saw Jade Cutter was on the banner for Kokomi's weapon, and I said on that banner that you shouldn't roll on it unless you are ready to get Kokomi's weapon and you're rolling for Kokomi, because I think it is such a trap to go for the Jade Cutter when you can see one of the weapons in the game that is probably the lowest value of all the 5 stars. Maybe there's something else, but off the top of my head, that's all I can think of. But this weapon actually isn't the worst in the world. You could still use it on other Catalyst users and it would be fine. So for that reason, I do think this weapon banner isn't that bad, especially with the 4 stars it's coupled with Sacrificial Sword. That being said though, I don't think if you're free to play, you should roll on it unless you just have a ton saved up, right? Because if you can't guarantee Jade Cutter, it would be a bummer if you went in, got the Catalyst, and weren't able to guarantee it. But at the same time, if you got 1 4-star and that 4-star with Sacrificial Sword, that'd be neat. But in general, if I had to rate these 2 banners, I actually think that this one, the Yae Miko banner, is not that bad. A lot of people are going to say avoid it like the plague because of Toma, but the fact that it has Fischl and Diona on it already makes it a good banner. On top of that, you have Primordial Jade Cutter on the weapon banner, and you have Sacrificial, Stringless, and Wavebreaker's Fin, which is basically, again, just a Xiangling buff. So if you had to ask me if it's worth it to roll on either of these banners, yes, it's worth rolling on the Yae Miko banner if you're not saving for anyone in particular. However, of course, as always, I want to make it clear that if you are planning on saving for another character, or if you're close to pity and you don't want Yae Miko, I would not risk it. At some point, Fischl will rotate back into the monthly shop and you will have the opportunity to get her. Now, I don't know when that will be, but you don't, especially as a free-to-play player, you don't want to ruin your pity by pulling a character that you're trying not to get, specifically for a 4-star. I don't think that's ever worth it unless the unit that you're trying not to get is actually one of the best characters in the game, because then at least you could find use for them. But based off of just this information alone, I do think the 4 stars on this banner are pretty good. And then the weapon banner, again, I really do think it's pretty good. I think this weapon banner is solid. I just don't think it's the best one we've ever had, but the fact that Jade Cutter is back and on it makes it very valuable. Now, if you're thinking about rolling for Yae's weapon, but you're free to play, I would urge you to hesitate a little bit, give it a little bit more thought, because of course, free to play means that your Primo Gems are very precious, and this weapon is going to be coming out very soon, and it's going to be free to play. This is the Oathsworn Eye Catalyst. This is going to be from an event in-game that's going to be happening during the 2.5 patch. It has a 27.6% attack stat at level 90. Its base attack is 565. The one weird thing about this is I don't think it's refinable, because it doesn't have any sort of blue text on here. It could be refinable later, and we just don't know, but it says this is refinement 1, and they haven't highlighted any text in blue, so I do think the passive is going to be static like this, 24% for 10 seconds after using an elemental skill, and this is going to be very, very valuable for Yae. We don't know if this stacks up. If this does stack up on top of each other, if you're able to use it with Yae and do that, then it's going to be insanely good, especially if you run like Emblem of Severed Fate on Yae, and you can use that energy recharge stat to just nuke things. So in general, this does look like a really solid weapon for free-to-play players looking for Yae. So just consider that. If you're not sure if you want to go all in on this weapon, you do have Oathsworn Eye coming out fairly soon. So with all that being said, you guys, I am working on a ton of videos for this coming patch, and I'm so excited to share everything with you. Those are my thoughts on the new banners, and if you guys have enjoyed, or if you want to be updated on Genshin news and new game releases and everything in general, go ahead and subscribe down below and leave a comment about what you're excited about for next patch. I will catch you guys later, and thanks for watching.